The crystal chandeliers cast dancing shadows across the gilded walls of the Kremlin's state dining hall as distinguished guests from around the world gathered for what would become one of the most memorable diplomatic dinners in Russian history. The evening air carried the scent of traditional Russian cuisine mingled with the subtle fragrance of imported flowers that adorned each meticulously set table. Vladimir Putin moved through the grand hall with his characteristic measured pace, greeting heads of state and diplomatic officials who had traveled from across Europe and Asia for this crucial summit on energy cooperation. The dinner was meant to signal a new era of dialogue, a carefully orchestrated event that had taken months of preparation by both Russian and international diplomatic teams. The French president exchanged pleasantries near the ornate fireplace while the German chancellor examined the historical paintings that lined the walls. Representatives from China, India, and several African nations formed smaller conversation groups, their voices creating a sophisticated murmur that filled the vast space. Each guest had been carefully vetted through multiple security screenings, their backgrounds examined by both Russian intelligence services and their own security details. Putin paused at the head table, surveying the scene with the practiced eye of someone who had hosted countless such gatherings. The seating arrangement had been debated for weeks, with protocol experts ensuring that every placement served both diplomatic courtesy and strategic advantage. Tonight's dinner would precede tomorrow's formal negotiations on a massive energy pipeline project that could reshape global economic relationships for decades to come. The evening's menu had been selected to showcase Russian culinary traditions while accommodating the dietary requirements and cultural sensitivities of the international guests. Master chefs from Moscow's finest restaurants had worked alongside the Kremlin's kitchen staff to prepare dishes that would impress without overwhelming, creating an atmosphere of refined hospitality that would set the tone for the serious discussions to follow. As guests took their assigned seats, the soft notes of a string quartet filled the air, performing classical pieces by Russian composers interwoven with international selections. The musicians, positioned discreetly in an alcove, had been rehearsing for weeks to ensure their performance would enhance rather than distract from the evening's diplomatic objectives. Putin took his seat at the center of the head table, flanked by the most senior visiting dignitaries. The Chinese delegation leader sat to his right, while the representative from the European Union occupied the chair to his left. This positioning had been the subject of intense negotiation between the various diplomatic teams, each seeking to demonstrate their nation's importance in the emerging partnership. The first course arrived with ceremonial precision, servers moving in coordinated patterns that spoke to hours of rehearsal. Each dish was presented simultaneously across all tables, a logistical achievement that required split-second timing and extensive preparation. The Russian tradition of hospitality was on full display, with every detail designed to honor the guests while subtly demonstrating the host nation's capabilities and attention to detail. Conversation flowed across multiple languages as automated translation devices allowed real-time communication between delegates who spoke different tongues. The topics ranged from cultural exchanges to preliminary discussions of the technical aspects that would dominate tomorrow's formal sessions. Putin moved skillfully between conversations, demonstrating his command of multiple languages while gathering insights that would inform his negotiating strategy. The wine service began with the second course, featuring selections from Russian vineyards alongside international vintages chosen to complement both the cuisine and the diverse tastes of the assembled guests. Sommelier experts had spent weeks coordinating with security teams to ensure that every bottle met both quality standards and rigorous safety protocols that governed all consumables at such high-level gatherings. What happened next would be analyzed by security experts and intelligence agencies for years to come. As Putin raised his glass for the traditional diplomatic toast, a subtle change in the wine's aroma caught the attention of his personal security detail. The head of his protection team, positioned strategically near the kitchen entrance, noticed an almost imperceptible deviation from the expected scent profile of the Georgian wine that had been selected for the toast. The security officer's training kicked in immediately. Years of experience had taught him to trust his instincts when something felt wrong, even if he couldn't immediately identify the specific threat. He moved with practiced casualness toward Putin's position, his hand moving to the discreet communication device that connected him to the broader security network monitoring the event. Putin, observing his security chief's approach from his peripheral vision, continued his toast preparation while remaining alert to any signal that might indicate a problem. The relationship between a leader and his protection detail requires absolute trust and communication that often occurs without words. Tonight, that silent understanding would prove crucial. The security officer reached Putin's side just as the glasses were being raised across the hall. In a movement so subtle that most guests never noticed, he leaned forward and whispered a single word that caused Putin to pause mid-motion. The glass remained suspended inches from his lips as his mind processed the implications of what his security chief had detected. The wine's chemical signature had been altered in a way that suggested the presence of a sophisticated toxin, one that had been designed to be virtually undetectable except to the most advanced screening equipment. The fact that it had passed through multiple security checkpoints indicated either an incredibly sophisticated operation or the involvement of someone with intimate knowledge of the Kremlin's security protocols. Putin's response demonstrated the cool calculation that had served him throughout his political career. Rather than creating a scene that would alert potential conspirators and throw the diplomatic gathering into chaos, he simply set his glass down and continued with his remarks as if nothing had happened. To outside observers, it appeared that he had simply chosen to speak before drinking, a minor variation in protocol that drew no attention. Behind the scenes, however, a complex security operation began unfolding with military precision. The security team activated emergency protocols that had been developed and refined over years of protecting high-value targets in challenging environments. Every entrance and exit was quietly secured while additional personnel moved into position throughout the building. The investigation began immediately, with forensic specialists discreetly collecting samples from the wine service while security cameras were reviewed frame by frame to identify any suspicious activity in the kitchen or service areas. The scope of the operation indicated that this was not the work of a lone individual but rather a coordinated effort that had required significant planning and resources. Guest security details were quietly alerted through discreet channels that had been established for such contingencies. The international nature of the gathering meant that multiple intelligence agencies were now coordinating their response to what had clearly become a major security incident with global implications. Putin continued hosting the dinner with remarkable composure, engaging in conversations about energy cooperation and regional development as if unaware of the investigation proceeding around him. His ability to compartmentalize threats while maintaining focus on strategic objectives had been developed through decades of navigating complex political and security challenges. The forensic analysis revealed the presence of a rare neurotoxin that had been engineered to be slow-acting and difficult to detect. The poison had been introduced into the wine through a method that bypassed standard security screening, suggesting the involvement of someone with detailed knowledge of the Kremlin's security procedures and access to highly sophisticated chemical weapons technology. As the evening progressed, security teams worked to identify the source of the contamination while ensuring that the diplomatic proceedings could continue safely. The challenge lay in conducting a thorough investigation without alerting potential accomplices who might still be present at the gathering or disrupting negotiations that had taken months to arrange. The wine service was quietly suspended and replaced with sealed beverages that had been triple-checked by security specialists. Guests were informed of a minor issue with the wine selection, a cover story that provided plausible explanation for the change without creating alarm or suspicion about the true nature of the threat. Intelligence analysts began examining the guest list and support staff assignments to identify potential suspects. The sophistication of the attempted poisoning suggested state-level involvement, possibly from an adversary seeking to disrupt the energy cooperation agreements being negotiated. The timing of the attack, just before crucial negotiations, indicated that the goal might have been to create chaos rather than simply eliminate a single target. The investigation expanded to include examination of all food and beverage supplies that had entered the Kremlin complex over the previous week. Security footage from multiple angles was analyzed using advanced facial recognition software to identify any individuals who had exhibited suspicious behavior or deviated from established protocols. Putin's medical team conducted discreet health monitoring throughout the remainder of the evening, using portable equipment to track vital signs and detect any indication that trace amounts of the toxin might have been ingested despite the security team's quick response. The psychological pressure of continuing normal activities while under potential threat required extraordinary mental discipline. International security agencies shared intelligence about similar poisoning attempts and sophisticated chemical weapons that might match the profile of the toxin discovered in the wine. The global nature of the threat meant that cooperation between traditionally competitive intelligence services became essential for understanding the full scope of the conspiracy. The dinner concluded without further incident, though the investigation continued intensively behind the scenes. Guests departed unaware of how close they had come to witnessing a major international crisis that could have reshaped global political relationships and sparked serious diplomatic conflicts between major powers. Forensic evidence eventually pointed to a complex conspiracy involving multiple actors with access to both advanced chemical weapons and detailed intelligence about Kremlin security procedures. The investigation revealed connections to foreign intelligence services and domestic collaborators who had spent months positioning themselves to carry out the sophisticated operation. The attempted poisoning represented a new level of international intrigue, combining traditional espionage techniques with cutting-edge chemical weapons technology. The failure of the plot demonstrated both the effectiveness of Russian security measures and the ongoing evolution of threats facing world leaders in an increasingly complex global environment. Security protocols were subsequently enhanced based on lessons learned from the incident, with new screening procedures implemented for all diplomatic events. The close call served as a reminder that even the most carefully planned security measures must constantly evolve to address emerging threats and sophisticated adversaries. The energy cooperation negotiations proceeded the following day, though with heightened security and a deeper understanding among all participants of the high stakes involved in international diplomacy. The attempted assassination had failed, but it underscored the dangerous realities that accompany efforts to reshape global economic and political relationships. Putin's survival and continued leadership ensured that the strategic initiatives under discussion could move forward, though the incident served as a stark reminder of the personal risks accepted by those who operate at the highest levels of international politics. The poisoned wine had failed to achieve its objective, but it left lasting impacts on security procedures and diplomatic protocols. The investigation continued for months afterward, gradually revealing the full extent of the conspiracy and leading to significant changes in how high-level diplomatic events are secured and managed. The sophisticated nature of the attempt demonstrated that traditional security measures must evolve to address threats that combine advanced technology with detailed intelligence about target vulnerabilities. International cooperation in investigating the incident strengthened relationships between security agencies and intelligence services, creating new frameworks for sharing information about emerging threats to world leaders. The attempted poisoning became a case study in modern security challenges and the importance of maintaining vigilance even in seemingly secure diplomatic environments. The evening that had begun as a celebration of international cooperation and diplomatic progress became instead a demonstration of the dangerous realities that accompany efforts to build bridges between nations with competing interests. Putin's survival ensured that those efforts could continue, though with a deeper appreciation for the risks involved in high-stakes diplomacy. If you enjoyed it, please like, share, and subscribe to FictionWire Russia. This is a fictional story created purely for entertainment.